Hello there, and you're very welcome to the show where the viewer turns reporter to highlight the stories that affect them, DIY TV. And on tonight's programme, women's football, has it kicked off at last?
We think we're in at the start of something very big, a whole creation of a brand new, well-developed sport of women's football. We think Newcastle United should be in at the start of that and not be eclipsed by their local rival Sunderland, who've got a women's team playing in the same league as us next season.
Being a skinhead, a culture or a crime?
If you ask most people in the street their opinion of skinhead, violent, racist, troublemaker, I mean, I don't do any of that. You can walk down the big market and you'll see people, they look nice and respectable, and you could go around the corner and find them fighting. And you get more arrests down in the big market in one night than you will at any scooter rally.
And beaches, under threat?
I'm standing here on the edge of the Northumberland coast. It's one of the most beautiful, unspoiled coastlines in the world. But I'm worried that in a few years' time, this could all be spoiled.
Those are the subjects you want to raise here on DIY TV. Hello there, good evening. Now we start with the debate surrounding women's football. Is it a contradiction in terms? Well, the Cowgate Kestrels women's football team, well, I don't think so. They've stepped onto the DIY soapbox in an attempt to gain recognition.
I'm Jane Ashworth. I'm the chairperson of Cowgate Kestrel Women's Football Club. The club has been together for about 18 months now, and we've just completed our first and very successful season in the Northern Region League. We've just won the second division on our first time of asking. We think that's very good for our first year. We're also in the semi-final of the regional plate competition, which I think we've got every chance of winning too. As I say, the club has been together for about 18 months. We train once or twice a week, and we started off 18 months ago with 10 or 11 players. We've now got up to about 40. We've been hoping to try and get ourselves attached to Newcastle United Football Club. That wouldn't be the first time that would have happened. Many clubs up and down the country have got a women's side attached to them. Some of them have even got young women on their YTS schemes. Arsenal has. What we'd be hoping to get with Newcastle United is really open for discussion, but we think we're looking for the recognition of Newcastle United to say we recognise that Cowgate Kestrels are a good, well-run, well-organised and very skillful playing side.
The standard of my team is very good skill-wise, technique-wise. The only thing it lacks is a bit physical side. It couldn't compete with men on the physical side, but skill technique-wise, back to the basics, organisation skills, you know, it's perfect.
Women's football has been very big in Britain. In 1914-18, it was a very big sport, but it dwindled after the war, and now I think we're at the start of showing it of it becoming very big again. In Italy, there's a professional league. In Scandinavia, there's semi-professional leagues. We think that perhaps the start of this national league will be the start of professionalisation of the game in Britain. That's why we think it's important that Newcastle United get involved now and not be left behind by their local rival Sunderland, who have a women's team which is in the same league as us next season.
Good few boys that couldn't have done that. Jane Ashworth off the field now joins me in the studio together with many more of the members of the Cowgate Kestrels. Jane, this association with Newcastle United Football Club seems to be of paramount importance to you. What is the latest situation there?
The situation is that Newcastle United have not yet made their mind up about whether or not they want to take on a women's football team. We're hoping they do, to give us a recognition to women's football and to our team in particular as being an up-and-coming sport that wants to make a break and get itself developed. We're not talking about access to Gallagate, we're not talking about all becoming professional players, we're talking about them giving us a recognition and some financial help to allow the game to develop at its own pace.
Why should they be interested? What's in it for them?
Good community relations, good marketing, and a chance for women to take their place in football.
Okay, so while Newcastle are sort of sitting on the fence a bit about that, near neighbours Sunderland have already done it. You've got your ladies' football team.
That's
Not
right,
the one that will play in the second division next season, but you have got another one, haven't you?
Right, we have indeed, yes.
That was a cheap jibe, that, wasn't it?
We've actually had a team for 2 years now since I started at Sunderland, and basically what Sunderland get out of it is good community relations, but Sunderland being a community-minded club.
That's all. Is that what you think?
The thing is, we're not really looking for anything else out of it. They're a very community-minded club, Sunderland. And
Mick,
ladies
it
are
must be
part
a big financial drain. It must be a big drain on resources.
Not at all. I mean, really what you're looking for then is sponsors to sponsor the ladies' teams. The main thing for Sunderland as being a very community-minded club is that the ladies are a big part of the community, and why not have them involved with a football club playing football, and that's why the reason Sunderland started.
It's a man's game, isn't it? I mean, the game's always been dominated by men, and to do that, you're just appeasing the women in the community. I mean, why should the women...
That's absolute nonsense.
But the women are going to be playing a game that is all... The rules are all made by men. The FA, the Football League, it's all totally dominated by men. How do women stand a chance in it?
It's the great discovery of the age that women enjoy it too, okay? We play on the same size pitches, we play with the same weight balls, we play the same goals, okay? Well, you heard on the film that women are just as skillful.
Can I say something here?
Yes, just a quick question there. You actually play for the Kestrels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you hear any arguments about women's tennis, women's athletics? I mean, that's not underfunded or anything, just like women's football, you know? I mean, that's starved of cash, women's
football. Yeah, but I suppose people are used to those sports. They're not used to girls running around a football pitch, though.
Yeah, they could get used to it. I mean, look at hockey, women's hockey. Men are starting to play it. Them didn't start the same time as women, did they?
I've got no objection to women playing football, personally.
Yes.
None at all, but I just think that women aren't going to be as good at it because the whole game is made for men, isn't it? All the aggressiveness of it, isn't it? But I think that's true. I'd like to see women playing in sports where they're better.
Let me hear from this lady behind you here. Madam.
I mean, it's a whole issue here. Women are stereotyped from birth. They're expected to play with dolls, nice, quiet little games. Boys are encouraged to play football, rough and tough games. If girls were playing football from the age of 2, it would just be accepted as the norm. They would gain all the basic skills, all the natural movements that a male has.
And do you think women would be in the top level of football in the first division?
I don't say why not.
Okay.
They'll be lighter and quicker on
Geordie
the feet.
Potter, you're managing a team week in, week out. Is it only worth managing if they're going to get to the top level?
No, as I say, I've managed them from the start, and I've known all the girls since for a lot of years. And the way I look at it, they want to play football, and they want to improve their skills, and they want to play at a higher level.
But is it not also important to ask, especially when Newcastle are pondering whether or not to be affiliated with the women's team, who actually wants to watch them?
Well, as I say, I mean, we could get around that. Newcastle could ask us and say, play a couple of exhibition games before main games on weekends, and just like to see how many, what women would come to watch that, or what the crowds would be.
Well, Tony, you've managed a women's football team. You've played at professional level as well.
I've played professional with Middlesbrough. I manage Middlesbrough ladies now. I've played with some lads at professional clubs, professional level, and some of the ladies that play for my team are better than some of the men. It is that big a difference. The gentleman there, he said earlier on that he doesn't play football. How can he judge between men and women playing football if he's never played?
Well, you can, as a viewer, you can judge. Surely you can make that
but he's also trying... We're never ever going to play
Have you ever
against men.
seen ladies
We
play
don't
football?
want that. He's giving the impression that he thinks that's what's going to happen.
Well, how can you judge a women playing football if you've never watched women seriously playing football?
I have a little, and I didn't think I thought the
Yeah,
standards
but
were
you
pretty
can't
low.
judge if you haven't seen them, though, can you?
But
no, I have seen them.
But by
on
and
TV,
large,
I've
I
just
mean,
told
lots
you.
of us have watched it on television. There's a discernible difference, surely, Tony. There's a discernible difference.
Yeah, but you're only seeing highlights on the telly. You're only seeing the good parts and now and again the bad. But you've got to go and watch it.
At the end of the day,
there.
has it not to be attractive to people coming through the turnstile?
It is attractive though. This man's making the confusion yet again that people always make about women's football. They say football is just about strength. It's not. It's a game of skill and athleticism and fitness. And women can have all those qualities just as much as any man. Of course the game will be less powerful. That doesn't mean it'll be less attractive.
Steve Wraith. Okay, let me just talk to Steve Wraith here. He's a Newcastle United supporter. Do you think you would see the day when they would have an affiliated women's team?
I think the day will come eventually that you'll have women's football at St James's Park, but I think it's going to take a lot of deciding financially and that on both sides when the day actually comes. I think that's where the sticking point is. You've got to pay people, you've got to pay police, you've got to pay stewards, you've got to pay people to come and serve food. You've got all these things to consider. And to pay these people, you've got to have people come through the turnstiles to watch the game, to watch women's football. I think what Joel Potter said before is right, that if they played exhibition matches at the start, say next season, that people would get interested, you know, and it wouldn't just be a laughing stock. People would go, oh yeah, they are quite good, you know, and then perhaps you would get the stage where they say, right then, we'll up that to say 6, 7, 8 games next season, and then, you know, we
but
get
Jane, nevertheless, I mean, taking your point about people have discovered it's fun to play, it's great to be involved with. The game must have made tremendous strides over just the past 2 seasons.
Absolutely, it's quite incredible, it's quite phenomenal how much women's football is growing in this country, and it's also incredible how many male professional clubs are setting up or adopting women's teams, which are then taking their name, and Newcastle are just getting left behind.
I made the point that Newcastle seem to make quite a lot of money off reserve games. They attract 7,000 or 8,000 to see like lads play. I can't really see why they couldn't like
do the
have
same,
women
do the
have
same
women on.
with women watching. Just finally, and in brief, Jane, I think your game's in need of a bit of a confidence booster, isn't it?
That's right. You see, women will play football, whether Newcastle United or anybody else says we can or we can't. That game will take place. It's now a matter for people to make their minds up which side are they on. Do they want to be on the side of people who are trying to develop the women's game, give women the opportunities to develop their skills, increase the game, or do they want to stand back, let it develop, or do they even want to hinder us?
We'll leave it there. Jane, thank you for your film and for raising the subject. That's where we take a break. Coming up in part 2 of DIY TV, skinheads defend the way they look. That's in a couple of minutes. First, what you had to say about them to the DIY video eye.
It's just the way they look. I know they're different people like underneath. You can't judge them by the way they look. But if you see one who usually go off in the other direction, well, I don't really mind them as long as they behave themselves. You know, I mean, you can't go by the hairstyle.
And not that I like these sort of people, you know, but it takes all kinds to make a world.
Welcome back to part 2 of DIY TV. Now the question this time round is, are skinheads victims of fashion, victims of society, or are they victims of their own violence and racism? Well, 5 skinheads have joined us this evening to use DIY TV's open forum in an attempt to try and shatter what they believe is the myth that all skinheads are thugs. Now that's what we'll be discussing with our studio audience after we've seen their report.
When you see us, what springs to mind?
My name's Stephen, I'm a skinhead. My name's Jock and I'm a skinhead.
I'm Anne and I'm a skinhead.
My name's Tex and I'm a skinhead.
I'm Gail and I'm a skinhead.
Well, skinheads evolved out of the mods in about 1968-69. And it was all based around the black music at the time, with the immigrants coming in from Jamaica. They brought the reggae and ska with them, and the skinheads picked up on it. And that's why it makes no point to be racist.
Skinhead, 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 skinhead.
It's a way of life to me. It's what I want to express myself as. It's like people express themselves in like punks, you know, other things like that. I want to express myself as a skinhead.
Skinhead, 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 skinhead.
I like the way they dressed, I like the music, and it was just me. So I didn't dress like anything else, I preferred the clothes, I preferred the music.
Skinhead, 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 skinhead.
When it started off, the peanut cut had been around for quite a few years. It's like a short sort of haircut really, and it was like in with the mods.
Skinhead, 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 skinhead.
It's just me. It's like everything I do is involved with being a skinhead. I mean, like the way I dress, scooters, just everything really. I mean, it's just my whole life.
When a skinhead walks down the street, every chick heart skips the beat. When a skinhead walks down the street, every chick heart skips a beat. Skinhead.
It was violent at the beginning, because it was a working class cult, and most of the working class kids were going to football matches where there was inevitably fights between fans. Take one look at us and think, scum, yobs, you just think we're out to cause trouble. That is not fair, that. I mean, they're just looking at the image portrayed by the press, not at the people. I'm firmly anti-racist. It makes no point to be racist when the music's based around a lot of black music. The media's built it up over the years. It's all based around the neo-Nazis now, the skinheads. We're not like that. There's a couple of lasses down in Plymouth had been pushed into the sea, and it said, later in the press, in the paper there was a couple of youth, but the headline was blazing skinhead yobs. The majority of us are not like that.
Bars, you get really, sometimes you don't get served, or they'll ask you to have one drink and then leave, or some places will accept you, but you have to look around for them places. Everybody should be treated equal, whatever they are. I'm not racist, I don't believe in it. It's like just said, everybody should be equal. I think they should just look at us for what we are, and not go around saying, oh, hooligans and yobs and all that. I just go out and enjoy myself, keep out of trouble. If anybody starts trouble, just try and break it up. I'm a human being, I'm not a monster.
It's my whole life. Everything I do is revolves around being a skinhead. Like, everything. It's more upbeat than being anything else. It's like whenever you go here, there's if you go to a gig or anything, you're guaranteed to have a really good time, and you go out for a drink. It's just really good. Like, the music's good. I'm not violent. I never go looking for trouble, and I'm not racist. I'm none of those things that people think we're going to be. It's like slagging off black people or gay people or disabled people. They're the same. I mean, we're the same as everybody else. It's just it's visible, and it's an easy target to. I mean, we're just scapegoats for other people's narrow minds. I'm ordinary.
It was mostly like the younger ones, and they just wanted something different, and they sort of identified themselves with the type of mod dress, and just took it on a step further with boots and short hair. We started a group off called Sharp, which is Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice, and we started off a northeast division of it, and the main ideas are to promote that not all skinheads are racist, not all skinheads are troublemakers, not all skinheads sniff glue, not all skinheads have bald heads, not all skinheads go around mugging people and things like that.
If we go out in a group, you get stared at, you get comments made at you. People just generally take the mick, you know. If you ask most people in the street their opinion of skinhead, violent, racist, troublemaker, I mean, I don't do any of that. You can walk down the big market and you'll see people, they look nice and respectable, and you could go around the corner and find them fighting. And you get more arrests down in the big market in one night than you will at any scooter rally. I'm just human, that's all. I'm human and I'm a skinhead. I'm just trying to get on with that and enjoy it without people pointing the finger at me for no reason at all.
Never judge a book by its cover.
Very wise words indeed, but human nature being human nature, of course, most of us judge books by their covers, and the 5 books and people in question have lined up here. Tex, those were your words in the film. Does it not strike you that perhaps that you are the human equivalent of a Rottweiler when you think about it? I mean, people who own Rottweilers.
Thanks very much.
But I mean, people who own Rottweilers, they say, I know they look vicious, I know they look threatening, but you know, this one is really as meek as a sheep. Is this the sort of, you know, it's a fair enough comparison. You know you look threatening. So why do you complain when people say you are threatening?
It's a free country, isn't it? What you got to think about is it's a free country. Everybody's supposed to be able to do what they want to do. What about the people who can't help what they look like or what they do? You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that go around, as Gail said, down the big market or wherever, like that. You know, if you see people, you know, and you say which is the hoodlum, that person or that person, and there's a skinhead involved in it, it's always, the skinhead, you know. They choose to be like that. Yes. They choose to be a skinhead. But it's a free country. You should choose what you want to choose.
And basically, if the film was saying anything, was it saying that you're misunderstood?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, we all choose to look like this. I mean, nobody's forcing us to go and wear boots. But I mean, I don't think that we particularly look frightening. I mean, I can't see how I can look threatening to anybody. But,
can't
I mean,
see that?
No, I really can't.
Well, can
I mean,
ask,
some
can
people
I ask
might
a few
do.
people here if they would think you look threatening? Would you mind?
No, I don't mind.
Would anybody in the audience find Gail, isn't it, yes? Threatening to look at? Right, okay, you've passed that one. That's good, right? We've got over that hurdle. Would you not accept if you went, say, to a job interview that you would be at a serious disadvantage, maybe over other candidates?
Yeah, maybe, and that's wrong. I mean, that's partly what this is all about. We shouldn't be judged like that. I mean, I'm not going to change my appearance to try and get a job. That's just against all my principles.
Right, well, Steve, why won't you toe the line? Why don't you conform the way society wants to see you?
But why? We're here to live our own lives. So why, if somebody says you've got to be that, why be that? We like this, we like the way we dress, we like the fashion, the music. So why just dress the way somebody wants to if we...
Well, simply because I suppose skinheads have such a bad name.
Why? Why?
Why?
The media's
well,
built that up.
The media's built that up.
The media's built...
Listen, I can only give you my own experiences, my friend, and as a teenager growing up in Belfast, it was not a very funny situation running from skinhead. So I can speak from my own experience,
Well,
and I would
I've
say...
had experience with that.
You haven't had experience
I have.
with that?
Previous to this, I was a modern back in the late 70s.
You don't know what you want to be, do you? You have an identity crisis.
In the early 80s, we used to get chased all over.
No, Anne, you are going to be a mum soon, yeah? And Jock is the hubby here. He's the dad, right? So not worry you that maybe when, you know, baby grows up and is 15, 16 or so and he's looking at pictures of mummy and daddy holding him, that he's going to say, what a pair of Egypts they were.
No, because it's not going to know any difference, is it?
We're still
going to be its parents.
But are you going to bring your baby up as a skinhead?
No.
No.
I mean, if it wants short hair, it'll have short
skinhead,
hair.
then let it become a skinhead. I'm proud of being a skinhead.
They look like Egypt. I bet you wore a flared suit in the 70s.
I mean,
probably did. You're right there.
You know, but why should we change just because we're married and having a kid? Why should we change being skinheads? I'm proud of being skinhead, and I always will be until I get fed up of being one.
So there's no time limit on it as such?
There's no time limit.
Right. Okay. Well, let's find out just from a social point of view, I suppose, why people feel the need to assume an identity like a skinhead. Why do they?
I think what you've got to remember is that being a young person in the 80s and the 90s is very, very different from being a young person in the 60s or the early 70s. Back in the 60s and 70s, being a young person was all about fun. It was all about opportunity. You could drop out of college, you could drop out of work, and you could be reasonably sure that you were going to get a job or you're going to have a second chance at college. We talk about the swinging 60s and the whole sort of mods and rockers and thing and the glamour of the 60s and the early 70s. That's changed. That's changed enormously now. And to join a youth culture, whether it be skinheads or punks or whatever, is one of the few opportunities that young people have to have any sort of identity. But there are very few avenues for young people to do anything apart from to join together in small groups and to make some sort of statement about themselves and their lives and their friends in that sort of way.
And what are they saying about themselves by being this? What is that statement?
Well, I think you'd be better off asking the people themselves what they're doing. They're the ones who've chosen to become skinheads, so ask them why they've chosen to do that.
Who wants to tell me why they're a skinhead? Who wants to take that one up? Why are you a skinhead?
Well, I'm not a skinhead, though.
Oh, you could have fooled me, but... Well, in fairness to you, Roy, in fairness to you, we should say that 2 weeks ago, you certainly weren't a skinhead. No. Now, this is Roy 2 weeks ago. Look at that, right? And this is him today. Why did you do it?
Oh, just bored, you know. It's sort of like... I had the long hair and I was in the bath and I got the big one and took it off, like.
So, although you would say you're not a true skinhead,
No,
presumably, superficially, people would treat you as though you are a skinhead.
Well, I noticed a mass change in people's reaction towards us when I had the long hair. It was like, there was a time I went to the DHSS for some ago there, and there was these kids who would take the mickey out of us because of my long hair, because, like, you know, I don't know why. And then when I got my hair cut like this, it's like people stood back as though I was some kind of thug or a hard case of some sort, you know. I mean, my opinion on skinheads, from my experience of when I had the long hair, I didn't like them for the way I used to get treated. I'm back like 1979, when there was loads of riots on, and they used to come up like the Handyside Arcade, where loads of like hippies and rockers used to hang around, and we used to get, I used to say, like loads and loads and loads of violence, you know. They used to just come up and beat all up for any sort of like reason, you know.
So why on earth did you want to look like one of these people?
I didn't want to look like one. I just thought, like, I've always dressed like this. Just, I mean, well, I look the same.
without the head.
So you find that you're being judged or held responsible for actions they would have carried out? Right. It's your girlfriend beside you, yeah? What did you prefer, the hairy one or the...
The hairy one.
The hairy one, definitely. What is the big difference as far as you're concerned?
I just think people with long hair look better. I think it gives them more character.
Right, well, Ian.
I disagree.
Well, you don't think people with long hair look better, obviously?
No, I mean, I think you were really unfair on the people at the front that made the film. I mean, you were patronising them. I mean, I'm not the same sort of skinhead as they are. I don't dress the same as them. But I have got the short hair and I do wear the boots, I suppose. But I mean, I respect what they do. I wouldn't respect them if they were front skins.
But do people respect what you do?
I think so. I don't see why they shouldn't.
You don't get funny looks, you don't get people backing off from you?
Not normally, yeah. I mean, I'm quite small. I suppose I'm...
Are you aggressive in your nature?
Not necessarily, no.
Would you sound as if you're aggressive? You see, you sound as if
no,
you
because I mean, you wound me up. I mean, these young these young people have made an effort to make their point of view, and you deliberately.
No, the floor is theirs. The floor is theirs. I don't feel.
You normally get. I mean, these are all probably canny lads, but there's probably one or two of them amongst them who think they're somebody special because of the way they look. They think, oh well, I've got Steve Toe cap.
I think there's someone special.
No, but I'm not mean by that. I mean by sort of like, if I sort of like still looked with me long hair and went to where them drinking what I wouldn't walk with the place alive. Even if I wanted to go in for a pint. No, you cannot deny that.
Because you know that
you
some of
cannot
this lot
deny.
used to come in Riverside and they look the way they do.
I know some of them come in the Riverside now. But, I mean, the minority, there's a few of them amongst them. I'm not pointing at anybody because I don't know any of them, but there is an odd one or two what I think they can sort of like... The look.
Okay, of course you do. Of course you do. Now let me just get something clear here. The fact is that the good folks down here have said that they're skinheads, but all skinheads are tarred with the same brush. What we are realising here is that it's probably quite natural that they're tarred with the same brush because skinheads have very bad PR. They have a very bad image. Surely you would accept that, Ian?
I would accept that, but that's your job and that's reflected in the way you came out. Like,
sorry, I'm just asking you a question. I asked you, would you accept the fact that they have had a bad image?
Yeah, I do, but I think that
well, therefore, it's not
understandable.
understandable. Well, that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. Non-aggressive, fine. Right. Now, Anthony, and Miles here. We're talking about the fact that skinheads have this bad name, rightly or wrongly. You would think rightly.
Definitely.
Do you think by the fact, the way people dress in the skinhead culture, they are making a statement, or can you have good skinheads and bad skinheads?
Me personally, I wouldn't really know because I don't know the history of the skinhead sort of movement back to its earliest days.
Your personal
but I know from
human reactions to looking at one.
I think there's one side is skinheads to look at are very intimidating. It's a very violent image they put across. Secondly, I know for a fact that the National Front and the British National Party have actively been recruiting in the amongst the skinheads for quite some time, and within this region and nationally, and across Europe we've seen it in East Germany and West Germany recently. So I would, as a black person, I would say, well, I'd be immediately suspect of a skinhead, however they personally may be, because of that, for that reason.
Okay.
Can I just make another point here? In the film you talked about going down to the big market and being judged as a thug. Well, as a black person, I feel very nervous about going down to the big market at all. You know, which is, you know...
Steve, do you not have any apprehensions or any, withdrawal symptoms about being associated with a culture that has such a bad reputation?
No, because when you really do look at it, it hasn't got that bad a reputation. I mean, like she said, like she said, we can go out.
No, wait, can I ask? I mean, do you feel picked on by the media and the public?
Very much so.
Do you feel picked on by the police?
Very much so, yes.
Well, now you know how it feels.
Yes.
Right, now you know how it feels. Right, and for me, personally, it's just like coming up as a youth in the late 70s and early 80s. I spent most of my time running, or doing a 100-metre sprint or whatever. I mean, it's like, I haven't got nothing against you personally because I don't really know you. But as the way how you look, the way how,
but that's like what I'm trying to say when you were thinking about shop.
Before you say hold on a minute, it's just like, they've had their say, they've said what they wanted to say, and I've got nothing against that. That's fine, but if you really want to...
saying that all young men are picked on by the police, no matter how they look.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
I'm not a skinhead, I'm not black, and I get picked on by the police.
That's not true at all. I mean, the point that I want to make across is A,
Personally, I don't think you've got any right to say that you've been picked on or you're getting persecuted, because if you really want to know what being persecuted is or being picked on, there's a 400-year history of black people.
Right.
Check that out.
An interesting thing here, though, Anthony, is the fact that from a fashion point of view as well, whether or not you're into the subculture, as Ian was talking about there or not, there is a skinhead fashion culture, is there not, Paul Shriek?
Yeah.
Now, so you, I mean, people like you, could be skinheads without actually being skinheads, if you know what I mean.
Well, the very nature of fashion says that fashion is a vulture, and fashion will take anything from any culture. The skinhead movement is a very smart, very slick movement. They are always immaculately dressed. If they're true skinheads, they're always well turned out. And you can look round chain stores at the moment. This is a chain store shirt. It's a rip-off of a Ben Sherman button-down. They're available now. And I don't think society actually realises how much the youth cultures in general influence the clothes they wear.
Paul, can I just ask you to do something? Can you just raise your boot, your left foot, up into sort of a vague area where we can see that there? You're talking there, that's a steel toe-cap boot, which, I mean, you may be wearing that as a fashion accessory as such, but the history of that kind of footwear, right, violent, it's about violence, it's about kicking someone and causing the most bodily harm possible with one stroke.
What about people who go to work with boots like that on?
Well, okay,
really?
Tex. Well, could I ask, Tex, pardon me, excuse me. Could I just put a point here without trying to sound derogatory about this, but when we talk about fashion terms, right, is that like asking Miles and Anthony to dress up in Ku Klux Klan outfits as black people?
What's the Ku Klux Klan going to do?
Because we're talking about the violence induced to the violence associated with skinheads.
You see, the ironic thing is
that you're glorifying that.
Well, we're not
fashion.
really, because a true skinhead would say, why on earth hasn't he fastened the laces on his boots? It's an insult to what we do. Fashion, as I say, we are vultures, and we will pick out on anything to cause something. The skinhead look is an exciting look. You only have to look around things. Well, I mean, there's something about it. It's got that edge of danger, and it's a major thing.
If you just got maybe you're going to kick somebody as well.
That's what I mean. It's ridiculous.
You know what I mean?
Maybe the reality of it out there is that if you choose to look like a skinhead, the image of the skinheads is based on facts from many incidents in history.
Could I maybe
so if you choose to look like that, you can't complain.
Actually, I'd like just to broaden this out and get opinions from people who perhaps are not directly associated with this. Would anybody like to make an opinion? You, sir?
Yes. Well, as an honorary skinhead, I suppose I can comment.
I suppose you are, in a way.
No, I think two sides of the argument have been pretty well put. It's a perception, and if you don't actually know the other person, it's very difficult to get a true image of what they are.
You're going to spend time in finding out who the other person is when they're dressed as aggressively as a skinhead would be?
Personally, no, but very recently I've had the experience where a friend of the family is actually marrying a skinhead.
Right.
And my first reaction was totally empty. But within about 5 minutes I had a totally different opinion. Now that doesn't say that everybody is like that, but it shows how you categorize people without truly understanding what you categorize.
And that's exactly what you're trying to say tonight. Right, I want to go up and talk to your mum, because she's here tonight. She's dreading me coming up here, aren't you? From your point of view, Viv, now, did you think, and Anne's been, what, a skinhead for what, over 10 years or so?
10 years.
Yeah? Did you often think she would grow out of it?
No, so certainly did.
Did you hope she would grow out of it?
I did,
yeah.
Got to admit that, yeah.
Do you hope she still will grow out of it?
Well, I can't see her 40 or 50 with that kind of hairdo, to be honest.
Right.
But I mean, it's her life. It's up to her.
Yeah.
But on the vicious side, I can think of many businessmen in their very smart suits who are darn sight more vicious than any skinhead I've ever seen.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but that gentleman mentioned youth culture. Anne's 25. That's not youth. Youth is 16, 17, 18.
Okay.
Anne went recently to Anne's wedding. There was 30-year-old skinheads there, well-educated, with good jobs. It's a culture that's going right through the life. It's adaptable.
Well, let's talk to Anne a wee bit just about that.
Can we say something here,
Yeah.
like, to everyone? It's like, I mean, we haven't got nothing against you people here personally or anything like that. It's just that you've said in your program you've chosen to be skinheads, all right? So you've taken that choice out of your own free will, yeah? Now, surely you know the history of skinheads.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but
So
I mean,
no, but hold on.
know
From
the history of skinheads.
right, from the history I know of skinheads is like running, basically fighting, defending myself. My front tooth here is not real because it's been replaced. And you know what I mean? But that, I mean, I'm not associating with you with that, all right, or anything like that. All I'm saying is that you know the history, you know where it's coming from, you know what, you know,
yeah,
sort of like.
It's coming from.
And there's a lot
the
of
type of skinhead we're wearing.
Hold on. Yeah, but you've got to realise, look, from our point of view, you latched onto the music.
Hold on.
You latched onto the music.
Right, and also I want to say that in response to a point that was made over there about being able to make a judgment, I would need to assert that when I'm walking down the street and I see 30 skinheads walking towards me, I've got no time to think maybe he's okay, maybe he's okay, maybe I'm running the other way. You know, I've got no time to.
Why should you run though?
Why should I run?
I could dress up like this, right?
Why should I
I
run?
could go home, I could dress up in camouflage, trousers, docks up to my knees, and why should you run from us?
Right, let me ask, we've had enough time, I suppose, to talk about this in air, both sides of it. You've made your film, you've talked about why you are skinheads, we've talked about the history of skinheads and people's perceptions of them. Who in the audience would have changed their opinions about skinheads? Those non-skinheads in the audience would have changed their opinions about them after listening to this tonight. Could you give me a show of hands? Changed their opinions favourably? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 people. So just give me a show of hands those who would not have changed their opinions about them. And there's a lot of undecided people there, basically. We've still got plenty of debates to come here on DIY TV tonight, all investigated by you, of course. And coming up next in a few minutes, we'll be discussing whether enough is being done to protect and preserve the Northumbrian coastline. It's after the break in part 3 of DIY TV. Welcome back to part 3 of DIY TV. Now in tonight's Talking Heads, Alison Blair of the Evening Chronicle visits some of her favourite beaches along the Northumbria coast and asks, is enough being done to protect their natural beauty?
I'm Alison Blair, I'm the women's editor of the Evening Chronicle. I'm standing here on the edge of the Northumberland coast. It's one of the most beautiful, unspoiled coastlines in the world. But I'm worried that in a few years' time, this could all be spoiled. The northeast has lots of special features. This coast is one of them. I love coming down by the sea. I bring my children as often as I can. We don't even mind too much when it's cold and windy, which it often is. It keeps the rest of the world away. It's one of the reasons our beaches seem so clean and unspoiled. There's something for everyone on our coast. Cullercoats Bay has a Marine Conservation Society Blue Flag Award. You don't have to be rich or privileged to come here. You don't need a car. People can just pop down and enjoy it. Then there's the Northumberland coast. It's a lot more inaccessible. You need to be quite determined to get to some of the best beaches, but they are wild and very unspoiled, and you won't find nature looking better than this anywhere in the world. There's a problem, though. Pollution. The North Sea is one of the world's biggest rubbish dumps. Scientists say it has become the most dangerously polluted sea in the world. One day, I want to be a little old lady taking my grandchildren fishing and rock pooling and finding sea creatures like children have been doing for hundreds of years. You may think that's just my quirky dream. Who cares? I think it's their right. We have to stop using the sea as a dumping ground.
There's a particularly bad problem in the German side of the North Sea. We, as an association, have tried our damnedest to make sure that or anything remotely like that ever happens here. You know, we fought consistently against the indiscriminate dumping at sea. We actually blockaded for a few hours the port of Blythe, stopping the fly ash from being dumped at sea. Now, fly ash is a pollutant, but it's not a non-toxic one. But for all that, it does destroy fishing grounds, and it affects the livelihoods of our members. Whether it's toxic, non-toxic, as I said, the fly ash, the coal waste, I don't think anything should be dumped at sea whatsoever.
Water here is certainly very cold, but it's very clean. Yesterday we were windsurfing, we could see all the way to the bottom, about 100 yards out. It's crystal clear, it's beautiful. and very, very, very environmentally clean. There's seals all over the place. As you windsurf in the evenings, they come up to look at you. It's not the easiest place in the world to come to. It's the access isn't brilliant, but when you come, you know that you're surfing in clean water. The environment's beautiful, and you just don't feel that you're windsurfing on rubbish. I live in the southwest, where it's really like windsurfing in a washing machine full of sewerage.
Well, we've got a wonderful range of natural habitats on the northeast coast and many other parts of our coastline. They're some of the few wild environments that we've got left in the industrialised world. And here in particular, we've got very clean seas. We've got a sheltered haven here, which is quite unusual on the east coast. We've got some wonderful sand dunes full of flowers and colourful insects. And we've got some wonderful headlands with bird colonies on. With the high level of awareness amongst the people of our country and other countries, I think there was a lot of expectations for the white paper on the environment last year to come up with some sort of coastal strategy. Organisations like the one I work for, and people particularly in my position that work on the ground, were very disappointed that this important environment wasn't addressed. I think it's important not to dwell on the negative side of things, but to think positively. We still have a chance to get things right. And I think one thing we must address, we hear a lot about the economic side of life and versus the environment. It's all like they're opposite forces. We depend on the earth for resources, and I think one problem we have in our society and in the industrialised world is that we've lost touch with our environment. We have to use it, we have to use the earth's resources, but we must get back in touch with the environment again and understand it and use the resources wisely.
So, a brief look there at the state of our beaches here in the northeast. Now, Alison, after having made the film, and thank you very much indeed for doing it, and carrying out your research, did you find that things were better, worse, or just as you had expected?
I discovered that things in the northeast are not as bad as I expected, but the northeast coast is an oasis in a sea of filth. And what I discovered is that nothing in nature exists in isolation, and what goes into the sea 20 miles away or 200 miles away can catch up with us one day, and we have got no room to sit back and say, we're all right, no, it doesn't matter.
You feel we can't be complacent about it.
Certainly not.
Because there's an unusually large amount of good beaches here, isn't there?
There are, and that's exactly why people in the northeast should be amongst the forefront of people saying we need a national and an international strategy to protect the sea.
Yeah. Now, one of the ways of grading the beach and actually determining if it's good or bad is to award it a blue flag. Now, Mike Brannigan, explain to us this system of awarding beaches blue flags.
Well, the blue flag criteria, in actual fact, for me, comes into two basic groups. The first one's water quality. If we're not successful in achieving the water quality requirement, we're not in the race. North Tyneside this year at Cullercoats Beach actually fulfilled that criteria. From then, the blue flag judges look at other things, look at other beach safety. That's why we have people like beach patrol staff on our beaches. They look at the safety equipment provided. They look at the access to the emergency services. They look at a clean beach, a clean beach free of actually pollution that drifts in, a beach clean of dog dirt and all the other glass debris that might happen on the beach. And finally,
that's caused a bit of an uproar, though, hasn't it? Sorry, finally.
Yeah. The last one is information. It's very important that we as an authority and the blue flag people get the message across to people that we are looking towards achieving something, that people do need to know why we're doing it, and that the flag is being flown and why it's being flown.
But it was difficult getting those dogs off the beaches, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it continues to be a difficult issue. Ron, our harbour master on the site, could tell you all about the day-to-day problems that we have.
Let's hear about the day-to-day problems, Ron, because you're the man waving the blue flag there.
Yes, that's right.
So, what about the problems of people and their dogs?
Well, we approach them in a decent manner and ask them if they remove them, you know. I mean, it's been going 3 years now, and I mean, there's plenty of signs up around the harbour that tell them that they can't get access on the beaches. But they seem to have some excuse. They come up with a lot of excuses, you know.
Does dog filth really make that much of a difference?
Oh, yes, you get a lot, yes. I mean, it comes up with a tide that lies on the high water mark, you see, and you get it lying, and the kiddies get in it with their feet and they fall in it and everything, you know. So our task...
What do you actually do there at Cullercoats to make, do you sift the sand? And
well, what we do is our daily task starts at 7:30 in the morning with my staff and the lads there, and we set to cleaning it ready for the public coming down. And The unique part about it, Colin, which is we're rated by hand. The whole
See,
of
I
the
actually
beach.
find it amazing that a council would pay money in this day and age to actually do that, such as the importance you place on it. That must be quite heartening, Alison.
Well, it is, but I feel that dog dirt on the beach is something that can be dealt with on an individual and personal level. The problems really go beyond that, and the problems faced by North Shields Council in keeping a Blue Flag Award for Colour Coats Beach go way beyond keeping dogs on the beach. They've got to look right out into what's going into the sea, and that's the thing that's outside their control.
Well, Andrew Wright, from a Friends of the Earth point of view, things don't seem that bad up here.
Well, I'd like to make a point about the Water Quality Award for Blue Flag Beach, that it's based on that bacteria counts, when in fact most of the infections picked up in the water are due to viruses, which are very difficult to test for. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't pick up a nasty bug swimming on the Blue Flag Beach.
Right, okay. Mike, from your point of view, we were looking at your beach there in the film. What sort of state, you've been working there in one capacity or another for about, what, 12 years?
Yeah,
what,
that's right.
Would that beach really be in any worse a state if people like yourself were not there?
We work in a very localised sense, and that conservation bodies like the one I work for have a very valuable role in designating areas, going out and buying them if they're available, if the land becomes available. But they're very isolated sites, and very few of our environments live in isolation, you know, and this is particularly true of the coast. It's a very dynamic area.
Right.
So what happens far out at sea can affect the coastline. You know, the fact that I'm controlling an area or doing my best to look after it doesn't mean it's safe from what happens farther afield.
Okay, but one thing I suppose we can have more control on is what happens on the actual shoreline. And the boys from the Beach Patrol here, they do their biz most days. What way does the general public, by and large, treat their beach or their beaches?
It's starting to improve. The main problem's litter and just general safety, you know. In the bins provided on the beaches, I think I've cleaned up a lot.
Yeah, and are people generally welcome your presence there on beaches, or what way are you treated?
I think generally most of the members of the public are. The only occasional run-ins you have tends to be harsh to say, fishermen who've been there for years who feel that you're new on the scene and you shouldn't really be telling them not to take the dogs down on the beach and things like that.
Right, okay. Now, Mike, from your point of view, we're talking about what goes out further out to sea, and from the water authority's point of view, what sort of job do you feel you're doing?
A pretty good job. It's nice to hear all the praise that's coming out for the clarity of the water, and I can assure Alison that by the time she's a little old lady, there'll be a lot of improvements. There'll be improvements by 1995, when we'll comply with all the requirements for the bathing waters. There's over £100 million going to be spent before that in improving. There's another directive which says that we've got to stop dumping sludge at sea, which we will by 1998. And there are further directives which are coming out of the EC, which have just been adopted, which by the year 2000 and 2005 will sort all of the water quality problems out. That, if I can just finish that one point, what it actually does say is that there is a coordinated approach being taken, and that is across Europe.
Okay.
I think a piecemeal approach is being taken, and what worries me is that companies like Mike's don't do anything until they see damage. Now, I think that's too late. Once the damage has started, it's often irreversible, and the profit motive comes far too much into it. Something like Northumbrian Water has to make money, and it doesn't make a lot of money to actually... recycling sewage is not necessarily a sort of a quick way of reinvesting their shareholders' money.
But part of the reason why you've made this film is obviously to make people think and make people aware how they can change things. But complacency must be a problem in all of this, because people probably don't realise they have good beaches. They probably realise they have good beaches when they come across a bad one somewhere else in the country or somewhere else in Europe or whatever.
I think the sea really is one of the environmental aspects that gets the least attention, because it's very much out of sight, out of mind, and people don't see it every day in the way that you see cars churning along the streets burning oil, and it's all sort of black fumes, and you walk into the city and you see the litter.
Well, who's that, John? What, sorry?
The fishermen. We've fought this not just this year. Last year it hasn't become fashionable. We've been fighting against pollution or anybody dumping at sea for 10, 12 years.
So the fishermen are good guardians of the sea?
Of course. We don't want it to, it's our livelihood, and we don't want people to get hurt by it.
Okay.
We have exactly the same motive, and I can't accept the situation which is being said that we're complacent. I think more than £100 million spent over the next 4 years is a good example of a lack of complacency.
Certainly seems to be. It is an inheritance, I suppose, for a young chap like yourself.
Yeah.
Are young folks like yourself more environmentally aware than older people?
Yeah, certainly are. There are a lot more people going out and looking at the beaches. There are school projects, people do projects at school where you test the pollution in the seawater and things like that.
All of that seems to be good news and good to hear. Alison and everyone, thank you very much indeed. And I'm afraid it's all from DIY TV for this week. We're back at 10:40 next Friday. Until then, have a very good weekend. We'll leave you as usual with your comments to the DIY Video Eye. Good night. Bye-bye.
What gets me right up the nose is when the local breweries put 10 pence on a pint of X when I've just found the last 10 pence.
It really gets on my wick, stereotyping of nurses. We're not all tarts, okay?
What really gets up my nose is the way the lack of television coverage on darts. It's the only sport that England totally dominate.
What really gets on my nerves is the way men tend to gain promotion easier in female-dominated professions just because there's not a high percentage of them.
What really annoyed me this year was the way that the roads in Wingrove never got repaired until the local council elections in May.